Hello, everybody, and welcome to Haiku Talk. I'm your host, Ben Ga, your friendly neighborhood haiku poet, and today we're going to be looking at a piece from Rose Dowis, first line of Wee Winter Hours, from the latest issue of Autumn Moon Haiku Journal. All right, with that said, you know what time it is. Time to sit back, relax, grab yourself a tasty beverage, and let's haiku. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Haiku Talk. It's good to be with you again for another episode. This time, I actually have my first repeat poet, Rose Dowis. Hope I'm saying that last name correctly. And this poem is it's just wonderful. We'll get right to it in a moment. But I want to say that part of the reason why it struck me is among many reasons, is I was at an alumni event last night for my alma mater, Knox College, and was there, and there was a current student at the event who's also majoring in creative writing, and I have a degree from there in creative writing, and we got to talking about poetry and everything that brings our attention to different forms and what piques our interest in things. And one of the things she really likes about writing poetry is just the kind of the playful use of language and the things you can do with poetry that you generally don't get away with in prose. And I got to say, I definitely agree with that. And this poem, when I was going through again, trying to pick one for the episode, just kind of reminded me of her and that love of playful language, that love of good word choice, of interesting words, and kind of that poetic language that really distinguishes this form from prose or other types of writing. And this just hit all those on the nose, and I just feel like it's the right one for this episode. So without further ado, let's get to this haiku. Wee winter hours, the moon silvers a distant tree. Wee winter hours, the moon silvers a distant tree. See what I mean? Wee winter hours, what a great line. Wee winter. I love it, the WWs and how the moon silvers something. Taking the word silver and making it a verb is really exciting because it's exactly the right word to use, even though it's not a way that you normally use the word silver. It's just exquisite, and it's one of those things that when you read it, it excites you, it delights you, it perks you up and saying, oh, this is poetry. This is something that poetry does. And yeah, it's exciting. So let's take a look of how this is constructed and break it down line by line. It follows the fragment and phrase construction with the first line of wee winter hours being the fragment and the phrase being the moon silvers a distant tree. And now when it's important, why I break that out is haiku is reliant upon juxtapositions, and the juxtaposition of two images in particular, that each individual piece of it by itself is an interesting bit of something. But when you put those two things together, and how you put those things together, and where they touch, creates a vibration, and makes this whole thing really pop, makes the two become more than the sum of their parts, and really gives you that kind of partly of what gives you that aha moment in a haiku. And so when I break this down and show like if it's a fragment and phrase or if it's got a middle pivot or something else like that, it's all about the juxtaposition of things. And that's a key element of what haiku makes a haiku. It's its own kind of part of the language that it uses, and it's what makes it. And so that's that in this case the fragment and the phrase, and it's a common way of things. The things are juxtaposed, and it's a common way for haiku to be written, where you have that phrase and a fragment. linked together. In this case, okay. So from there, let's look at this line by line. So the first line of this poem is "We winter hours." We winter hours. And they got me at the word "we." I mean, it's fun, it's playful, it's a wah word, W word, one syllable word, and pair that with winter, we winter hours, and I know right where I am. I know right the type of day. I know right what kind of feeling the mood is. I know right what the temperature's like, either inside or outside, because I don't know where I am yet. I just know it's cold, and we're in that wee morning hours of a day, and I'm up, and I'm aware of the season, and I'm aware of what that means. For me, I go right to being someplace inside, cozy, with kind of like you see in the background, kind of dim lighting. Maybe there's some music going on. There's a blanket. There's some tea. There's maybe a loved one or a cat snuggled up with you. Just where I'm aware of the moment, and it's a kind of a special time. The wee winter hours are a special time of year, a special thing to be up and aware of. And that's, again, I say this all the time. Your first line of a haiku really needs to grab the reader, stoke an emotion, grab grab the senses, put somebody in a place, a time, a setting. And this one, like I said, that first word, I'm hooked. I want to know what's coming next. And we winter hours, perfect. Now that second line is the moon silvers. The moon silvers. Oh, it's so beautiful. The moon silvers. I mean, so I know that I'm awake, I'm by a window, or I'm able to peer out at the moon, and the moon is silvering something. So it's that casting of light that comes out, especially on a crisp winter evening. That's a very specific kind of winter light, a very specific kind of moonlight that happens. And I don't know what it's silvering yet, but I'm really intrigued and just pulled in by that word, silvers, because it's a poetic turn of phrase, to take a noun and make it a verb. And I want to know what it's silvering, but already I'm kind of pulled in with the language. We've got the we and we've got the silvers, and I am enchanted by this piece. And so we get to line 3, a distant tree. A distant tree. So now I know I'm inside looking out the wee winter hours, and the moon is out, and I'm just able to make out a tree in the distance, and the tree is being silvered by the moon. I mean, come on, silvered by the moon. Oh, that's just gorgeous. And it's one of those things that, if you are tuned into haiku and haiku thinking, and haiku is part of how you view the world or encounter the world, you know that the world is filled with these moments that happen all of the time. But the haiku path gives you permission to stop and take notice of things. And by taking notice of things, you are gifted a world of beauty that is just there for us to observe. I mean, it's going to be there happening whether you view it or not, which is also a really cool thing, that this is just going to happen. Like, this tree is going to be silvered by the moon, whether you're watching it or not. But the fact that someone was awake and someone was paying attention, someone was quiet and observing what was happening in the world around them. They weren't tipsy, they weren't partying, they weren't doing whatever they are, which have their own moments with them, but they're quiet and they're still, and they're able to look out at a distant tree and notice that the moon is silvering that distant tree. I mean, that means you are really paying attention. You are really present in the moment. And you are not only that, but you're aware to capture this and understand that it's beautiful, and understand that it's worth sharing, that these things matter. And I don't care what's going on in the world, what kind of, horrible things or wonderful things. These are the kind of moments that mean something regardless. These are things that everyone needs to pay attention to at some point in their life, to pause and reflect upon and just be present with. And if you can't do that yourself, reading a good dose of haiku can introduce you to these moments and take you to these places that maybe you aren't able to get to yourself for whatever reason. Or, I'm just a junkie. I love reading this stuff. I can't get enough. And so I am amazed at how many places I get to go and travel to, and how many things I get to experience by going through a single issue of a journal, and there were and anytime I'm referencing one poem out of a new issue of a journal, it's not always easy to pick which one I'm going to use for an episode. Certain things are variables, tip a poem one way or the other, but I usually have a bunch of things picked out that I have to really pick through and figure out which one is it going to be, because there's so much good work being written out there today by poets alive today in journals that are being printed today. And that's the cycle continues. Every new issue, every new season, every new quarter, however many things come out, and people are working and engaged in this form. They're seeing, they're paying attention, they're being still, they're noticing things, and they're sharing that with the world. And in such, I'm doing the same thing. I've read this from the journal, and I want to share it with you, with the world, because this matters. This type of thing matters. Connecting through poems, connecting through moments matters. It's what we, how we connect as humans living in this life that we live. And this is a kind of moment that is not just tied to our time. This is a poem that you could read this at any time, 100 years back, 100 years forward, and it would still resonate. It still captures something beautiful and is not tied to a specific point in time. There's no reference points to anything that grounds you in 2024. There's no reference points that grounds you into a specific anything. It's just you have to be alive and breathing and notice, be present in a space to notice this. And what a gift. What a gift. And that wraps up another episode of Haiku Talk. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope all is well in the world. As far as YouTube stuff, make sure you like this. Click a thumbs up if you've liked this episode. If you like this episode and other episodes, think of subscribing to the channel. And if you've liked and subscribed, ring the bell to get notifications when new episodes drop. I don't spam you. They don't come out every day or a couple times a day. It's once a week, once every other week, or once every 3 weeks. Drop a little something into your world. And by liking and subscribing, it just means that we get to mess up the algorithms and get to show up places where people might not expect to see it, or people are searching for something in the relative area of this, and they get to find it. I do this channel for people that are looking for something like this, that are looking for something they don't know necessarily what they're looking for, but they find haiku like I found haiku, and for me, it really changed my life. And perhaps it's changed yours as well. And in that, we walk the same path. So until next time, peace, everybody. Peace.